Interesting reading this morning that the ANZ Commodity Price Index has risen 6.1% to its highest point since the index began way back in 1986. The gain was mostly driven by high dairy prices. Dairy prices lifted 12.7% in March, their highest level in 7 years. To talk a wee bit about the dairy industry and the livestock industry, I've got Jamie Cunninghame. He's the National Dairy Sales Manager for PGG Wrightson, based out of Fielding, the farming capital of the country. But Jamie, you're in another farming capital today, Gore. Good afternoon, welcome to the country.
Yeah, good afternoon, Jamie, and thanks for having me on today. And down here in Gore yesterday and today, and with our Southland Dairy team, and catching up on their movements and where they're at. But on your earlier comments, very pleasing to see the dairy trade, etc., is looking particularly positive, and the mindset out there and mood within dairy farmers is particularly good currently, that's for sure.
It's interesting when we talk about Gore, the stat that always sticks in my mind, Jamie, is back in the 60s, the two wealthiest towns per capita in New Zealand were Morrinsville, off the dairy cow's udder, if you want, and Gore, off the sheep's back. Of course, back in those days, Gore, Southland, was a sheep farming province, but it's very much a dairying province now. Look, it's that time of the year when people are moving on. Before we got too politically correct, we used to call it Gypsy Day. Nowadays, we call it Moving Day. It's when the dairy farms change hands, when the share milkers change farms, and when dairy herds are bought and sold. So I'd imagine there's probably pretty keen interest in dairy herds at the moment.
Yeah, Jamie. Look, we've had a fantastic sort of last month to 6 weeks with our dairy herd sales, in particular, have picked up through that period. Supply and demand is an interesting thing, and I guess we've seen a very buoyant market over the last, as I say, month to 6 weeks period, and we're starting to get through these quality herds and lines of in-calf heifers now, and probably so much so that we're probably seeing a little bit of a potential shortage in the market coming there in regard to supply. Really,
what's a good dairy cow going to cost me at the moment?
Look, I guess there's a huge range, but we're seeing the good quality herds ranging in value between sort of anywhere from 1650 through to sort of early 1800s in the North Island, and in some cases a little bit higher when you start talking about the deep south, just with the freight and etc.
Jamie, it's interesting you quote those numbers, because I can remember a time when top dairy cows, for instance, and this was at the peak, were selling for like $2,500.
Yeah, I think yes, when there was that significant growth, that was the case. But I suppose the dairy values have been relatively stable over the last 2 to 3 years, haven't fluctuated massively, and maybe that's a little bit to do with the probably the levelling of the dairy cow numbers within the country, and have probably got to a level now we're not seeing massive growth within the sector as in new conversions, etc. More so just a business as usual type model, really. Okay,
and are they sold on farm or sold forward? How does it work?
We've got a lot of what we've been working on up until now have been our forward contracts, which settled through May and June. So they're herds and heifers that we sell in advance on a forward contract and have them pre-sold. What we have got coming up is our on-farm clearing sales, more so in the North Island, and they're sort of starting in the next sort of 10 days or so, and will happen through the course of April, May, and a handful into early June.
Well, you enjoy your day in Gore. Jamie Cunninghame, National Dairy Sales Manager for PGG Wrightson. Good to chat about an industry on a bit of a high at the moment. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jamie.